Hey everybody out there. Some of you may have never seen one of those, but I bet some of you's caught a lot of fish on one. I got something cool for you today. We're going to talk about old time spinnerbaits. And I'll tell you, I think it's things like this are probably some of the saddest things to me. And I'm going to go through a lot of these little old companies that have come and gone in my local area. I know there's been many, many in your local area, wherever that is in the country, where we used to just have little companies all over the place building spinnerbaits or lures or jigs. And they were all over the country like that. And that seems to be fading away. But I thought I'd go down a trip through memory lane and show you some of the ones I grew up around. That one being the old Bass Buster Scorpion. Right, made up there in Missouri. Super popular bait back there in the 70s, Virgil Ward. They made this Scorpion. They made a Tarantula, another great one they made. Super cool old baits. Check that out. I bet somebody out there's caught one on one of these. Not made in my area, but one I remember looking at as a kid. Old Lindy. Twin spinners. They had the colored blades way back in the day. That was kind of wild. But I remember dreaming of trying to get my hands on some of those. But the cool old packaging too, man. This was really different back then. Here was another company up in Missouri that was there for a long time. First Out. They made a lot of spinnerbaits and jigs and up around the Clinton area, Truman Lake. So cool old spinnerbaits. Caught some bass on them myself. Here's a little old guy that was right in my area, right up the road. He made lots of baits. I bought them growing up. JR's Baits. Like I said, they're just guys like me that had a little shop and started making some baits. And next thing you know, they're selling a few baits. And here they are still, me talking about them. Here's one. And I don't have the packaging for it, but an old Gilmore. Now, they always left the legs great big on them things. They had a weed guard on it. If you notice, a lot of these old baits, they had the twisted eye on the end. All of them were mostly short arm single spins back in the day. Man, these Gilmores in the Ozarks, I don't know how many bass these things right here caught, but it was a lot. Had the old big kind of funky looking eyeball on there. Check that thing out. That is sweet. Oh, here's one. That's an iconic bait. I don't have one of the little SOBs, but here's an old half-ounce okie bug. Check out that head. That's not the coolest thing ever. Tulsa, Oklahoma, right there, right down the way from me. Okie bug. Made the SOB. This was I think he just called it an okie bug spinnerbait. Long arm, single spin. I could throw that. Here's one that was made by a couple of little guys and locally, and it was called Bass King. And that's a single spin. You can kind of see that was their packaging. I'm sorry it's so rough. I've just kind of grabbed these things up along the way, but here's one I've kind of refurbished it a little bit. They use a 29 gauge wire. Look at that. It's super soft. They had to tie it in a circle at the top to hold it together. They all had the old school living rubber skirts. They made them in single spins and willow leaves. This was popular bait around here in the 80s. 29 gauge. Look at that. Man. Cool old packaging. Bass King. They've been gone a long time. Here's another one that really took off during the willow leaf craze. And we threw them a lot out here. And that was the old Bumblebee. I bet some guys out there, I think they were out in Alabama. But look at the size of the blade on there. Bumblebee spinnerbait. They always put the big metal flake on the big bulging eyeballs. And a lot of big bass caught out here on one of those as well. Again, the twisted eye on the top. Hope you can see that. But the super cool old baits, man. There just used to be so much variance in lures Lures had character back in the day. Super cool. I love this bait right here. Here's another one, really cool head design. The old Fleck Weed Wader. It's another one that was super popular in the day. You can kind of see the shape of that head and stuff. A lot of them had them old vinyl skirts on there. I mean, just character. Character. That's what I'm going to say. These old baits had character. Man. This one right here. This was my dad's favorite spinnerbait right here. The old Blakemore CC Special. That stood for Charlie Campbell. And 3/8 with that old big giant Colorado blade. Look how long that arm is on there. Super cool old baits. I've watched my dad catch some big old bass on one of these right here. Super cool bait. Here's one out of the package. This is I think this is a 3/4 ounce one or 5/8. Look at the size of the blade on that thing. There for a while, there was an absolute craze around the Ozarks, Table Rock Lake and Bull Shoals. You take something with a big giant Colorado copper blade on there and wake that thing through them old cedar trees, somebody's probably gonna get hurt. Money right there. Another Blakemore. This packaging's pretty rough, but it was the same thing during that waking craze of the 70s. Big giant copper Colorado blades on there. Super cool stuff right there. Here was a little local guy, and there's really not much unique about this bait, but his name was Tefteller, and he made spinnerbaits. This little guy making them out of his garage. But everyone did something a little unique. He just had a bullet head, but he always painted his eyeballs on the underneath side of the head like that. And he passed away many years ago, but that's one of his old baits right there. Again, just nothing off the hook, but just still cool. I mean, I think it's cool. The first spinnerbait I spent much time throwing, and this was really just a copy off the old Red Man, but this was an Arky spinnerbait and a hand-tied living rubber skirt, old safety pin type deal. Just kind of a bullet head, really just a Red Man spinnerbait more or less, but it was made by Arky. Caught a lot of bass on one of these right here. This was one of the first baits my dad tied on an old 5,000 for me and said, get to chunking, boy. And I'd throw it all day long. 3/8 to 1, just reeling my life away. Wasn't reeling up any line. One of them right there. Put an old white and green pork frog on there. You're going to catch you a 5-pounder. One of the first baits I ever bought on my own up the old Walmart store. Old Strike King, little Colorado bladed spinnerbait. Cool packaging. Whole $1.96. Caught me a million bass on one of them too right there. The whole thing, 1/4 ounce, just little Colorado blades. There's an old early Strike King, same thing, except when they first willow leafs got popular, chucked one of them around too. $2.36. Something went wrong, folks. Now here's something I promise you none of you may have ever seen. Now War Eagle started right here in my town. I knew the gentleman that started that company way back in the 80s, and then it moved on to Keith Brashears, and a guy by the name of Gene Vandiver started that company years and years, even before we knew about it. And this right here was one of the very original packaging. They started out hanging on little wooden trees in sports shops, and then they started putting them on packaging. Right here. I bet you haven't ever seen a War Eagle like that one. Yep, I was there for that, folks. One of the largest spinnerbait companies in the world started right there in that package. That's cool. Another little local company over around Bull Shoals, Mr. Bass Lures. Another I don't know if you can see that thing in there. Just an old single spin, big heavy head, Big Colorado blade. Super cool stuff. I mean, everybody made one. We all bought them. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this thing in there or not. But this was a Bass King, a twin spin in there. Man, twin spins were a thing back in the day. Slow roll them things down them bluffs at night on bull shoals, Table Rock, through them old cedar trees. A lost art right there. A few more. An old Originals Nichols Pulsator. That was more than in the 90s. But Nichols made us realize you could paint the blades and really catch a lot. They were really the first company that I remember really taking off with the painted blade thing. And I remember buying a few of these because it was a thing. An old Stan Sloan. Yep. Aggravator. I bet we've all threw a few of those too. Another great big bass catching spinnerbait. One little company starts out in the garage. Next thing you know, worldwide. Old honey hole. Again, just another long arm single spin. I hate this packaging so messed up, but collecting spinnerbaits hasn't really been turned into a thing yet. I'm probably the only guy doing it, but man, I love this old stuff. Another old local company out here just building spinnerbaits. They'd probably put 12 of these on a card and hang them in the old sports shop somewhere. But again, short arm, single spin. Super cool. Big fat legs on there. That's cool. Well, that's my trip down history lane. There's a lot of cool old baits there. A lot of character. A lot of different old guys that just built lures back in the day. And, you know, I miss that. Hope you enjoyed looking at all them lures. I'm sure that you had some old builders back in the day that were in your backyard. That might have even turned into somebody down the road. I know I did. Now I'm in my backyard building them too and trying to keep it alive somehow. I know others are too. Next time you tie those spinnerbait, remember, there's a lot to this. They've been going on a long time. Hope y'all enjoyed that. And we'll see you next time.